It began like any other hearing, a stale room, a committee agenda, the low drone of bureaucracy. And then, without warning, Rep. Jasmine Crockett lit the fuse. "Mr. Chairman," she said, her tone sharp but steady, "I'm submitting into the record documentation suggesting that former First Lady Melania Trump received undisclosed financial investments from entities tied to the governments of Russia and China." The words hit like a thunderclap. Silence collapsed over the room. Aides froze mid-scribble. Reporters jerked their heads up. Even the veteran members of Congress, those who've heard everything, seemed momentarily stunned. Crockett didn't shout. She didn't need to. The gravity of the claim spoke louder than any voice could. A few seconds later, the murmur started one part disbelief, one part panic. Because this wasn't just an accusation of financial impropriety, it was a direct suggestion that foreign governments may have funneled money into the Trump household, possibly influencing presidential decision-making during his time in office. Crockett's statement was brief, but the implications exploded like shrapnel. Were Russian or Chinese interests buying influence through the First Lady? Did those funds shape U.S. foreign policy during Trump's term? And if so, how much of America's sovereignty had been quietly sold? Within minutes, number Crockett bomb, number Melania funds, and number foreign ties to Trump began trending across social media. Newsrooms went into overdrive, cable networks switched to live coverage. By the time Crockett left the chamber, her face was plastered across every television screen in the country. Inside the Trump orbit, the response was instantaneous and furious. A spokesperson from Mar-a-Lago denounced the claim as fabricated nonsense, calling Crockett a political arsonist with a microphone. Yet even the outrage couldn't extinguish the image already spreading online. Jasmine Crockett, standing tall beneath the Capitol dome, calmly dropping a bombshell that could reshape American politics. By evening, commentators across the spectrum were calling it the most serious allegation ever leveled against a former First Lady. But this was bigger than Melania, bigger than the Trumps. Because if Crockett's documents were real, they pointed to something far more dangerous. The possibility that foreign governments didn't just meddle in U.S. elections. They might have bought a seat at the Trump family table. Before we go deeper, don't forget to like and subscribe, because what comes next may change how you see the modern presidency forever. By dawn the next morning, Washington was in full crisis mode. Crockett's office issued a brief statement confirming she had submitted classified financial materials obtained from credible whistleblower sources. No further details, no follow-up interviews. Just enough to feed the storm. Meanwhile, investigative journalists scrambled to verify her claim. What they found only deepened the mystery. According to multiple congressional staffers, the materials allegedly trace a series of cross-border transfers between 2017 and 2019 routed through shell corporations based in Cyprus, Hong Kong, and the Cayman Islands. Each entity, on paper, was registered under a different holding company, but all appeared linked to foreign sovereign investment funds, including a subsidiary of China's CITIC Group and a Moscow-based trust partially owned by oligarchs close to the Kremlin. At the center of those transactions sat a curious name, MKT Global Holdings, the initials matching Melania Knauss Trump. If authentic, the documents could suggest that the former First Lady had quietly accepted investment capital, not personal gifts, but structured equity stakes in projects bearing her name, luxury branding deals, real estate licensing, and international ventures launched during her husband's presidency. Such arrangements wouldn't just violate disclosure laws, they'd raise chilling questions about national security. If a First Lady was financially entangled with foreign state-backed investors, could that have influenced U.S. foreign policy toward Russia or China? Coincidence? Or coordination? By mid-morning, the White House press corps was on fire. Reporters demanded answers from Trump's spokesperson. "These claims are absurd," she said, visibly shaken. "The former First Lady has no foreign accounts, no foreign business, and no reason to respond to lies." Still, markets shivered. The Dow dropped 200 points amid the chaos. Foreign policy experts appeared on air, connecting dots in real time. If proven, one analyst warned, this isn't just a scandal, it's a constitutional crisis. Inside Congress, the walls were closing in. Lawmakers from both parties demanded an immediate investigation. Speaker Hakeem Jeffries called for a bipartisan review of the financial documents. Meanwhile, MAGA-aligned members accused Crockett of weaponizing intelligence leaks. But sources close to the Oversight Committee whispered something darker, that the documents had already been verified by 2 independent auditors before Crockett brought them forward. That detail, if true, changed everything. Suddenly, Crockett wasn't a reckless bomb thrower, she was a prosecutor with evidence. And then came the leak. Late that night, the Washington Post published a partial image of what it described as a transaction verification page from MKT Global Holdings. The document showed a $4.2 a million transfer from Vostok Energy Fund, a Russian state-linked entity, into an account registered in Melania's trust. The date, November 2018. The page was blurry, redacted, and unconfirmed, but it was enough to ignite the second explosion. Cable anchors spoke in hushed tones. If these funds were received during the Trump presidency, one said, it raises the possibility that foreign governments directly financed the first family. The next morning, Donald Trump appeared on Truth Social, fuming. This is all fake news. Crockett is a liar and should be investigated herself. We love Melania. She is the most honest woman in America. But even his trademark bombast couldn't drown out the growing unease. Editorial boards began asking questions long considered taboo. Did Russia's lenient sanctions during 2018 stem from hidden leverage? Did Trump's oddly deferential tone toward Beijing reflect financial entanglement? And most hauntingly, did the American presidency for 4 years operate under silent foreign influence through its most private channel, the First Lady? The irony was brutal. In 2016, Trump had built his campaign on promises to drain the swamp and defend U.S. sovereignty. Now, his own family was being accused of embodying the very corruption he had vowed to destroy. Crockett, for her part, maintained radio silence. She neither celebrated nor denied the leaks. Her allies described her mood as focused, unshaken, and ready for war. But in Washington, wars like this are never clean. Behind closed doors, whispers grew louder. Intelligence officials were briefing select members of Congress about possible foreign vector operations targeting the Trump administration. One insider called it a spiderweb that stretches from Moscow to Palm Beach. The public didn't have proof yet, but they had something just as powerful: suspicion. And suspicion, once born, doesn't die easily. By the third day, the story had become unstoppable. Protesters gathered outside the Capitol demanding transparency. Truck-sized LED screens replayed Crockett's moment again and again, her standing straight, eyes steady, saying the words that now defined Washington's newest nightmare. Undisclosed investments, Russia and China. The phrase had entered history. By the week's end, Washington no longer looked like itself. Security details doubled. Cable news anchors were broadcasting outside the Capitol around the clock. And for the first time in memory, both the FBI and the House Ethics Committee launched parallel inquiries into a former First Lady's finances. Crockett had gone from congressional newcomer to political lightning rod. Supporters called her brave. Detractors called her dangerous. But no one could deny it, she had just changed the conversation about corruption and power forever. Her team insisted that her actions were not partisan. This is about national security, one aide said. If the Trump family was financially compromised, the American people deserve to know. Still, the political stakes were enormous. With the 2024 race looming, every revelation could tilt the balance. Trump's advisors privately feared that the narrative, true or not, might cement an image of vulnerability, a strong man secretly beholden to the very powers he once claimed to fight. Even allies hesitated. Fox News hosts softened their tone. Republican senators avoided direct defense. The silence was deafening. Meanwhile, independent analysts began uncovering what they called behavioral echoes, policy patterns, trade decisions, military hesitations, all subtly aligning with Russian and Chinese interests at critical moments. Coincidence? Maybe, but now every coincidence looked like a confession. Through it all, Melania remained absent, unseen, unheard, and, to many, unnervingly quiet. And then came the final twist. Late Friday night, a cybersecurity watchdog group released a report showing that several encrypted email exchanges between Trump Organization servers and a Hong Kong-based investment firm had resumed in early 2018 at the exact time of the alleged transfers. It wasn't proof, but it was proximity. Enough to keep the story alive. Enough to keep America awake. By the weekend, protest signs appeared outside the White House gates. Who owns our democracy? Crockett spoke. Now investigate. Whether Crockett's documents will survive scrutiny remains to be seen. Perhaps they'll collapse under audit. Or perhaps they'll open a window into the darkest chapter of the Trump era, one where foreign money whispered in the halls of American power. Either way, one thing is undeniable. Jasmine Crockett has forced the nation to confront the question it never wanted to ask. How much of America is truly for sale? And in that question lies the real reckoning. What do you think, a political witch hunt or the first crack in a wall of secrets finally collapsing? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter in this unfolding Washington thriller.